Welcome, everyone. Today, we're going to explore the mysterious legend of Osorezan, a place steeped in folklore and supernatural tales. Before we dive into our story, let me provide some context for those unfamiliar with this intriguing location. Osorezan, which translates to Mount Fear or Mount Dread, is located in Aomori Prefecture, the northernmost prefecture of Japan's main island, Honshu. This area is known for its harsh winters, beautiful nature, and rich cultural heritage. Osorezan itself is an active volcano situated on the Shimokita Peninsula, about 787 kilometers, 489 miles north of Tokyo. What makes Osorezan particularly fascinating is its long-standing reputation as a sacred site in Japanese culture. For centuries, it has been considered a gateway between the world of the living and the world of the dead. This belief has given rise to numerous legends and supernatural stories associated with the area. It's important to note that, while the legends and stories we'll discuss are deeply ingrained in local folklore, they are primarily considered urban legends or fictional tales. These stories have been passed down through generations, evolving and changing over time. They reflect the cultural beliefs, fears, and hopes of the people in the region. While some visitors claim to have had unexplainable experiences at Osorezan, these accounts should be approached with a blend of open-mindedness and healthy skepticism. As we explore the legend of Osorezan, I invite you to immerse yourself in the story, enjoying it as a piece of entertainment that offers a glimpse into Japanese folklore and the human psyche. Who knows? Perhaps there's a grain of truth hidden within these tales. After all, the line between reality and the supernatural can sometimes be blurrier than we think. Now, let's begin our journey into the mysterious world of Osorezan. The legend of Osorezan has captivated the imagination of people for centuries. This volcanic landscape, with its barren earth, sulfurous hot springs, and eerie fog, seems to exist on the border between our world and the next. It's a place where the veil between life and death is said to be at its thinnest. At the heart of Osorezan stands the Bodai-ji Temple, a Buddhist temple founded in the 9th century. The temple grounds are dotted with statues depicting various Buddhist deities and scenes from the afterlife. These statues, weathered by time and the harsh elements, add to the otherworldly atmosphere of the place. One of the most famous aspects of Osorezan is its association with the Itako, blind female mediums, who are believed to have the ability to communicate with the dead. During the Osorezan Taisai festival held each July, many people flock to the area seeking to connect with their departed loved ones through these mediums. The chanting of the Itako, their voices carrying on the wind, creates an ethereal atmosphere that sends shivers down the spines of even the most skeptical visitors. But what is it about Osorezan that has given rise to so many supernatural tales? Perhaps it's the landscape itself. The barren, rocky terrain, punctuated by pools of bubbling, sulfurous water, evokes images of the Buddhist hell. The frequent fog that rolls in, obscuring visibility and muffling sounds, only adds to the sense of being in another world. Many visitors to Osorezan report strange experiences. Some claim to have seen ghostly figures in the mist, while others speak of hearing disembodied voices calling out to them. There are tales of people feeling a presence, walking beside them, only to turn and find no one there. Photos taken at the site sometimes show mysterious orbs or shadowy figures that weren't visible to the naked eye. Of course, many of these phenomena can be explained by natural causes. The fog and sulfurous gases can play tricks on the senses, and the power of suggestion in such an evocative environment shouldn't be underestimated. Yet, for those who experience these events, the impact is very real and often life-changing. Now, let me share with you a fictional story inspired by the legends of Osorezan. Remember, this is a work of imagination, but one that draws on the rich tapestry of beliefs and experiences associated with this mysterious place. It was a rainy night when I received the letter. The sound of raindrops hammering against my window created an ominous backdrop as I stared at the envelope in my hands. The return address made my heart skip a beat. It was from my grandfather, who had passed away 30 years ago. With trembling hands, I opened the envelope. The paper inside felt old and carried a faint scent of damp earth. The message was brief, written in my grandfather's unmistakable handwriting. Meet me at Osorezan. I need your help. I couldn't believe my eyes. How could I receive a letter from someone who had died 3 decades ago? The rational part of my mind insisted this must be some kind of elaborate prank. But the handwriting, it was undeniably my grandfather's. I recognized it from the old journals I'd seen in his study years ago. As a self-proclaimed rationalist, I'd always scoffed at stories of the supernatural. But this letter was shaking the very foundations of my worldview. Strangely, along with the disbelief and confusion, I felt a warmth spreading in my chest. It was as if a long dormant connection had suddenly sprung to life. That night, sleep eluded me. Memories of my grandfather flooded my mind. He had been a kind and gentle man, always ready with a smile and a word of encouragement. On weekends, he would take me to the park, teaching me how to climb trees and catch insects. On summer nights, we would sit on the porch, gazing at the stars and discussing the mysteries of the universe. But amidst these warm recollections, there was one memory that stood out. A memory tinged with unease. I remembered being strictly forbidden from entering my grandfather's study. Once, I had snuck a peek inside, and saw strange artifacts and walls covered in unfamiliar symbols. And there was something else, a faint smell of sulfur that seemed out of place in the otherwise cozy home. Why would my grandfather want to meet me now, after all these years? And why at Osorezan? What kind of help did he need? Questions swirled in my mind. But alongside the confusion, a strong curiosity began to take root, and deep in a corner of my mind, an irrational hope began to grow. Could my grandfather somehow still be alive? The next day, driven by an impulse I couldn't fully explain, I took time off work and boarded a train bound for Osorezan. As the landscape outside the window grew increasingly rugged, I felt my heart rate quicken. I read and reread my grandfather's letter during the journey, each time feeling a mix of nostalgia and apprehension wash over me. As the train wound its way through the mountainous terrain, a strange incident occurred. An old woman sitting across from me suddenly fixed me with an intense stare. Her eyes seemed to peer into the depths of my soul. In a thin, quavering voice, she said, "You've been called, haven't you? Be careful, young man. Those from the other side don't easily let go of the living." Before I could respond, a train attendant approached and addressed the old woman. "Ma'am, your seat is in the next car. Let me help you there." As the attendant led her away, I felt a chill run down my spine. When I finally arrived at Osorezan, the scene that greeted me was beyond anything I had imagined. The area was shrouded in a thick, white mist, making it feel completely detached from the world I knew. The pungent scent of sulfur assaulted my nostrils, and steam rising from hot springs all around, added to the dreamlike atmosphere. With shaky legs, I began to make my way through the mist. I could make out the shapes of other visitors here and there, but everyone seemed unnaturally quiet, as if they too were being absorbed into the fog. Along the path, statues depicting scenes from Buddhist hells stood sentinel, their stern faces seeming to judge me as I passed. As I approached the Bodai-ji temple, I had a bizarre experience. Suddenly, all ambient sound ceased, and I found myself enveloped in complete silence. The figures of people I had seen in the mist moments ago had vanished, and I felt as if I had stumbled into another world. Then, breaking the silence, I heard the distant toll of a bell. The sound was hauntingly familiar, resonating deep within my being. Without conscious thought, I began walking towards it. As I drew closer, the tolling grew louder, seeming to envelope my entire body. And then, as if emerging from the mist itself, an old man appeared before me. The old man smiled and extended his hand towards me. In that moment, I realized it was my grandfather. But how could this be? The person standing before me had died 30 years ago. My rational mind reeled, the boundaries between reality and the impossible blurring. You came. My grandfather's voice melted into the mist. It was exactly as I remembered, warm, slightly hoarse, and comforting. Tears welled up in my eyes at the sound. How is this possible? I asked, my voice trembling. My grandfather smiled gently. I have something important to tell you. I knew that if it was here, at Osorezan, we would be able to meet. As my grandfather began to lead me through the mist, I noticed something odd. His expression had momentarily contorted, as if in pain, or was it frustration? The inconsistency nagged at me. In his letter, my grandfather had asked for help, but now he was saying he had something to tell me. Something didn't add up. We walked through the mist until we came to a small shrine. My grandfather pointed to something inside. There, I saw an old photograph. Upon closer inspection, I realized it was a picture of me as a child, standing with a younger version of my grandfather. But I had no memory of this photo being taken. Do you remember? My grandfather's voice echoed. This was taken when you came to Osorezan at the age of 5. I was confused. I had no recollection of ever visiting Osorezan as a child. You experienced great fear here, my grandfather continued. The trauma caused you to seal away this memory. In a flash, memories came flooding back. As a child, I had indeed become lost at Osorezan. In the pitch-black night, surrounded by the smell of sulfur, I had been terrified by strange shadows and sounds. And then, the figure of my grandfather finally finding me. With a rush of relief and tears, I remembered it all. But there was something else lurking at the edges of this recovered memory. Something that sent a chill down my spine. Behind my grandfather, as he found me, there had been a dark, shapeless shadow. As a child, I had fainted upon seeing it. You were so scared that time, my grandfather said. But in the end, you found your way to me on your own. You had that kind of strength within you. I was at a loss for words. But as my grandfather spoke, I felt an increasing sense of unease. Something was fundamentally wrong here. Why show me this memory now? I asked. My grandfather smiled gently. Because it's time for you to face your past. I wanted you to realize that you have the strength to confront your fears and overcome them. As he spoke these words, I felt a deep disconnect. Something was decidedly off. The moment I had this thought, my grandfather's form began to waver. and behind him, I saw that indescribable black shadow from my childhood memory. I need your strength, my grandfather's voice began to change into something else entirely. Your soul, gripped by terror, I instinctively stepped backward. In that instant, I felt as if the ground beneath my feet had disappeared. When I regained my senses, I found myself standing in the midst of a deep forest. My grandfather and the black shadow were nowhere to be seen. Enveloped by a profound sense of solitude, I had no idea which way to go. Then, I heard the tolling of the bell again. But this time, instead of drawing me in, it felt as if it was trying to lead me away from something. Guided by the sound of the bell, I began to walk. As I moved through the fog, the scenery around me gradually changed. The barren, rocky landscape slowly gave way to a lush forest. Then, I saw an old torii gate emerge from the mist. Passing through the gate, I found myself in front of a small shrine. There stood an old woman, the same one I had encountered on the train. You made it, the old woman said. You were almost in big trouble there, young man. What's going on? I asked, still confused and shaken. The old woman let out a deep sigh. Your grandfather's soul has been bound to this place since his death. And now, that shadow is trying to steal his soul. He called you here seeking help. I was stunned by her words. So my grandfather really had been asking for help. And that thing impersonating him had tried to trap me. But how can I help my grandfather? I asked desperately. The old woman pointed inside the shrine. Go in. The power sleeping within you will surely awaken. With trepidation, I entered the shrine. Inside, I found an ancient mirror. As I looked at my reflection, I gasped. Behind my image, I could faintly see the figure of my grandfather. He looked to be in pain, trying to communicate something to me. Suddenly, the surface of the mirror began to ripple. I felt as if my consciousness was being drawn into it. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself in my grandfather's study. But it was different from the real study. Everything seemed distorted. Strange characters danced on the walls, and dark shadows writhed in the corners. Grandson, you've come, my grandfather's voice echoed. As I turned, I saw him standing there. But his form was translucent, almost ghost-like. Grandfather, what's happening? I asked, still trying to make sense of it all. My grandfather's expression was filled with sorrow as he began to speak. When I was young, I performed a forbidden ritual here at Osorezan. As a result, my soul has been bound to this place even after death. And now that shadow is trying to claim it. What is that shadow? I asked, a chill running down my spine. It's an ancient entity that dwells in this land. It feeds on human souls. I've been fighting it for years, but I'm at my limit now. His words filled me with dread, but at the same time, a strong desire to save him welled up inside me. How can I help you, grandfather? I asked, determination in my voice. My grandfather pointed to the bookshelf in the study. There's an old scroll in that bookshelf. It contains a way to escape from the shadow. But be careful. The shadow will try to deceive you. As I approached the bookshelf, the air in the room seemed to freeze. The black shadow materialized before me, blocking my path. It slowly began to change shape, taking on the appearance of my grandfather. But its eyes were pitch black, like bottomless pits of darkness. Grandson, believe in me. The shadow spoke with my grandfather's voice. That ghost is an imposter. I am your real grandfather. I was confused. I couldn't tell which one was the real grandfather. At that moment, The true grandfather in the mirror cried out, "Remember. Remember our memories together." His words triggered a flood of memories. The warm days I spent with my grandfather as a child, and that day at Osorezan. The image of my grandfather finding me when I was lost, holding me gently in his arms. At that time, there was indeed a black shadow behind my grandfather. But my grandfather's love was real. "You are not my grandfather," I shouted at the shadow. The shadow writhed violently, then exploded into countless pieces. The room began to shake violently, as if everything was about to collapse. "Quickly, the scroll," my grandfather shouted. I desperately reached the bookshelf and pulled out the ancient scroll. As I opened it, I saw strange symbols drawn on it. Instinctively, I understood their meaning and began to chant. As I finished the chant, the mirror world began to shatter like glass. I lost consciousness, and when I came to, I was back in the small shrine. The old woman was looking down at me with concern. "Thank goodness, you've awakened," the old woman said with relief in her voice. "My grandfather, is he safe?" I asked weakly. The old woman's face softened into a gentle smile. "Thanks to your courage, your grandfather's soul has been free. He's no longer bound to this place." Her words filled me with a warmth that spread through my entire being. Yet, at the same time, I felt a pang of loneliness, as if I had lost something precious. The old woman continued, "But you know, your grandfather lives on within you. That courage and love you showed, those are the things you inherited from him." I stood up and stepped out of the shrine. The mist had cleared, revealing the beautiful landscape of Osorezan. The air was fresh and crisp, and I felt as if my heart had been cleansed. At that moment, I thought I heard my grandfather's voice carried on the wind. "Thank you, and goodbye." I took a deep breath and looked around. Osorezan was no longer a place of fear for me. It had become a special place that had given me the opportunity to confront myself and take a new step forward in life. However, this experience was not the end. Rather, it was the beginning of a new mystery. A few days later, as I was trying to return to my normal life, I was suddenly struck by a severe headache. Then, an unfamiliar landscape flashed through my mind. It was a place different from Osorezan, yet equally mysterious. Along with this vision, I heard a faint voice. "This is the next place. Come." I was perplexed. The events at Osorezan should have been over. But this voice and vision seemed to be an invitation to a new mystery. Had my grandfather's soul truly been saved? Had that shadow really disappeared completely? And what was this power that had awakened within me? These questions left me restless, and a new determination began to grow within me. I decided to follow the guidance of that voice and visit the next place to unravel this mystery. My experience at Osorezan had dramatically changed my life. The fear I once felt had disappeared, replaced by new courage and curiosity. My fear of the unknown had transformed into a strong desire to uncover the truth. At work, the topic of an overseas assignment that I had long avoided came up again. In the past, I would have immediately declined, but this time, I felt a natural urge to give it a try. While there was still anxiety about venturing into an unfamiliar environment, the excitement for new possibilities was even greater. I also began to work on my long-held dream of writing a novel. The subject, of course, was my experience at Osorezan. But it wasn't just going to be a horror story. I wanted to create a narrative with a deeper theme about confronting one's inner self and realizing the power sleeping within. My family and friends were surprised by the change in me. confident lately. You've become more proactive. I heard such comments more frequently. Every time I heard them, I remembered my experience at Osorezan and silently thanked my grandfather. And so, as if guided by that voice, I began preparations for my next journey. I didn't know where this place was or what awaited me there. But I felt no fear. Rather, I felt my heart race with anticipation for new discoveries. I haven't told anyone about what I experienced at Osorezan. It seems too surreal, too unbelievable. But someday, I want to share this experience with people around the world. Because this experience isn't just about supernatural phenomena, but about human potential and our connection to the unseen world. On the day of my departure, I read my grandfather's letter once again. And this time, I noticed small writing on the back of the envelope that I hadn't seen before. It read, "The truth is always hidden beneath the surface. Don't be afraid to dive deep." These words gave me renewed courage. Yes, this upcoming journey would be about seeking the truth, hidden behind surface-level phenomena. It would be both terrifying and exhilarating. My experience at Osorezan wasn't an end, but a beginning. New mysteries, new adventures, and further personal growth. All of these were waiting for me. I took a deep breath and took my first step into the unknown world. And in my heart, I whispered, "Grandfather, please watch over me. I promise I will unravel all these mysteries." Osorezan is no longer a place of fear for me. It has become an irreplaceable place. That triggered a significant change in my life. And I'm sure that the places I will visit from now on will help me grow in the same way. This story doesn't end here. A new chapter is just about to begin. Thank you all for listening to my fictional story. The legend of Osorezan is not just a collection of scary tales or strange phenomena. It might be a mirror that reflects the inexplicable thoughts and emotions deep within each of us. In this place where the boundary between the real world and the spirit world becomes blurred, what do people see and feel? The answer to that might lie within the hearts of those who visit. Osorezan is a special place that gives us an opportunity to confront ourselves. The legend of Osorezan makes us think about many things. For example, the boundary between life and death. We usually think of life and death as clearly separated. However, in places like Osorezan, that boundary becomes ambiguous. This is not necessarily frightening, rather, it might be an opportunity to think more deeply about the meaning of life. It also makes us contemplate the relationship between nature's power and humans. The wild yet beautiful nature of Osorezan instills a sense of awe in us. It reminds us of the respect and gratitude towards nature that we often forget in modern society. Furthermore, Osorezan makes us think about the power of memory. Like the protagonist in our story, we might have forgotten or sealed away memories within us. Confronting these memories might lead to discovering a new aspect of ourselves. The legend of Osorezan also teaches us about the importance of connections between people, connections between the living and the dead, between the past and the present, and between humans and nature. Osorezan might exist as a place where we can feel these connections. It makes us re-recognize the importance of these connections that tend to become weak in modern society. And above all, Osorezan gives us an opportunity for self-dialogue. For modern people who are often too busy to face themselves, places like Osorezan are valuable. The experiences here might give us a chance to listen to our inner voice and meet our true selves. The legend of Osorezan is not just superstition or folk belief. It is an expression of people's hearts. born in a place where deep human spirituality intersects with the mysterious power of nature. Because there are phenomena that cannot be fully explained by science, our imagination is stimulated, leading to new realizations and discoveries. Of course, not everyone who visits Osorezan will have supernatural experiences, nor is it necessary to seek such experiences when visiting. What's important is to take time to quietly face yourself in the unique atmosphere, history, and nature of this place. Osorezan also teaches us about humility. By recognizing the existence of invisible forces, we might realize the limits of human power and learn to face the world with a more humble attitude. At the same time, it also makes us aware of our inner strength. Moreover, the experience at Osorezan enriches our imagination. In modern society, efficiency and rationality are often prioritized, but sometimes we need the flexibility to accept things that can't be explained logically. Places like Osorezan provide valuable opportunities to nurture such imagination. The legend of Osorezan is also part of Japan's cultural identity. Coexistence with nature, respect for ancestors, and awe for the unseen, elements that Japanese people have cherished since ancient times. Osorezan exists as a place where these elements are condensed. Osorezan is also a place of healing. People carrying the sorrow of losing a loved one, those standing at a crossroads in life, those tired from daily life, people with various thoughts find peace of mind here. This might not necessarily be due to supernatural experiences, but rather the peace of mind gained from facing oneself in the quiet of nature. The existence of Osorezan seems to pose important questions to us, living in modern society. In this modern age where we try to explain everything with science and theory, how should we face phenomena and experiences that can't be explained? How should we balance rational thinking with awe for the mystical? Each of us needs to ask these questions to our hearts and find our own answers. The legend of Osorezan may change with time, gaining new interpretations and meanings. However, its essence as a special place, deeply etched in people's hearts, will likely remain unchanged. This is because it is connected to the universal thoughts and emotions deep within the human heart. The legend of Osorezan also teaches us about the power of stories. Stories have more power than mere entertainment. They have the power to shape our thoughts and emotions, and to change how we view the world. The legend of Osorezan, too, has been passed down among people over many years, changing form but continuing to convey its essential message. We, too, can be said to be weaving the story of our own lives. Our daily experiences and encounters, challenges and failures and successes. All of these create each person's unique story. What we can learn from the legend of Osorezan might be how to perceive and narrate the story of our own life. To see difficulties and strange occurrences not just as obstacles or misfortunes, but as opportunities for growth and new discoveries. To understand past events as important elements that shape who we are now, and to look forward to the future with expectation and hope as the next chapter of our story. Such an attitude can make our lives richer and more meaningful. The legend of Osorezan also gives us hints about the power of community. This legend has been formed not just by one person's experience, but by the accumulation of many people's experiences and thoughts. Similarly, our lives are not isolated, but shaped by connections with many people. Sometimes, we tend to get caught up in our own problems and worries. However, as the legend of Osorezan shows, sometimes an encounter with the other world, that is, perspectives or experiences different from our own, can bring new realizations and growth. This could be an encounter with family, friends, colleagues, or even strangers. Or it could be an encounter with a book or a work of art. The attitude of cherishing these encounters and trying to learn from them, and the feeling of wanting to share our experiences and learnings with others. These, too, might be what the legend of Osorezan teaches us. Look forward to our next story, and please, listen to the mysterious story within yourself as well. I'm sure you'll make wonderful discoveries. Our lives are grand stories indeed. In these stories, we are both the protagonist and the narrator. Like the legend of Osorezan, the stories of our lives can be mysterious, sometimes frightening, and often moving. What's important is to live that story in your own way, with sincerity. Finally, I'd like to ask a question to all of you who have listened to this story. In your life, is there a place like Osorezan? It might be an actual place, or it might be a special memory or experience in your heart. What did you feel there, and what did you learn? And how has that experience influenced your life? By answering these questions, you might discover an untold story within yourself. And by carefully nurturing that story, and sometimes sharing it with others, your life might become even richer. The legend of Osorezan teaches us many things. However, the most important thing is that it becomes a trigger for you to weave your own story. Please cherish the mysterious story within you, and I hope that story will make your life, and the lives of those around you, richer and more meaningful. Well then, let's meet again next time. Thank you very much for watching until the end. Goodbye. Now, for our viewers who might be curious about visiting Osorezan, let me provide some practical information. Osorezan, or Mount Osor, is located in Aomori Prefecture, in the northern part of Japan's main island, Honshu. The nearest city is Mutsu, and from there, it's about a 30-minute bus ride to reach Osorezan. The site is open to visitors from May to October, as heavy snowfall makes access difficult during the winter months. The main festival, Osorezan Taisai, is held in late July, which is when the Itako mediums gather for their rituals. When visiting Osorezan, you'll find a unique landscape, shaped by volcanic activity. The area around the caldera lake, Lake Usori, is characterized by barren, rocky terrain and sulfurous hot springs. The main religious site is the Bodai-ji Temple, which was founded in 862 AD. While the legends and stories associated with Osorezan are fascinating, it's important to approach them with respect for local beliefs and customs. Remember that for many, this is a sacred site of profound spiritual significance. Whether you're drawn by the supernatural tales, interested in Japanese religious practices, or simply curious about this unique geological site, Osorezan offers a one-of-a-kind experience that leaves a lasting impression on many visitors. As we conclude our exploration of the Osorezan legend, it's worth reflecting on why such stories continue to captivate us. In our modern, scientifically advanced world, perhaps it's because they touch on universal human experiences and emotions. Our fear of death, our longing for connection with loved ones who have passed on, our search for meaning in life. These legends also remind us of the mystery that still exists in our world. Despite our technological progress, there are still aspects of human experience that science struggles to fully explain. The enduring popularity of places like Osorezan suggests that many people still feel a need to connect with something beyond the material world. Moreover, these stories serve an important cultural function. They help to preserve local history and traditions, passing down values and beliefs from one generation to the next. They also provide a shared narrative that can bring communities together. For visitors from other cultures, legends like that of Osorezan offer a unique window into Japanese spirituality and worldview. They showcase the blend of indigenous Shinto beliefs with imported Buddhist concepts that characterizes much of Japanese religious practice. It's also interesting to consider how urban legends and folklore evolve over time. The core elements of the Osorezan legend, its association with the afterlife, the practice of communicating with the dead, have remained constant for centuries. But the details of the stories people tell about their experiences there continue to change, reflecting shifting societal fears and preoccupations. In the end, whether or not we believe in the supernatural aspects of these legends, they have much to teach us. They encourage us to ponder life's big questions, to consider our place in the universe, and to remain open to the possibility of mystery in our lives. So the next time you hear an urban legend or a ghost story, don't just dismiss it as superstition. Instead, consider what it might reveal about human nature, about our hopes and fears, and about the culture that produced it. You might be surprised by the insights you gain. And if you ever have the chance to visit a place like Osorezan, approach it with an open mind. Whether or not you have a supernatural experience, you're sure to come away with a deeper appreciation for the rich tapestry of human belief and experience. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the heart of one of Japan's most intriguing legends. Until next time, keep your mind open to the mysteries of the world around us. And don't forget to explore the fascinating stories hiding in your own backyard. Who knows what you might discover? Goodbye, and safe travels on your own journey of discovery.